It's on purpose. It's to correct here the thingy here. The thingy.
Sandra is just going to futz a little bit with the camera, but while we're waiting for her, welcome to an episode of the weekly FreudenFreude web live stream, where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader. Hi there, Sandra.
Hi, Claudia. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
That's so great. So great. We are
coaches.
We always try to sync this up, but
oh my God,
especially
it's gonna be fun.
The lag that we are having through Zoom, it just can't
yes
really get avoided. We tried, people. You can't. So all that being said, I work with I'm a professional coach working with entrepreneurs, corporate leaders, as well as their teams in tech and beyond.
And I am a coach, leadership coach. See, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about the topic and I'm already so eager to talk about the topic. I am a coach for leaders, for expatriates, young professionals, and I help them manage and decode their emotions and their values one step at a time.
Very nicely said. Very nicely said. You should write that one down verbatim and start using it. So today I am your co-worker, Sandra, and I hope that I will not come across as too crazy, because that's the topic of today.
That's right. That's right. And it has nothing to do with you. Just for reference, for the record.
Thank you. Crazy is as crazy does. Okay. Yes. Well, here we go. How to deal with your crazy coworker. What made you say yes to this topic, Sandra?
Oh, wow. So, about, I would say about 12 years ago. Yeah. I worked for a crazy leader. And this is, being a coworker is from across the board, from a CEO and leaders and managers and everybody that you have deals with. And this person had her little, what they call it, sidekick, that was passive aggressive. That was kind of in the crazy side, but passive aggressive, right? She was kind of like I am the voice of reason, I will help you. Exactly. Like, you sound crazy, so let's be the crazy passive aggressive one, right? And so everybody has that. We always have our sidekick that kind of supposedly delivers the message in a nice way, but there's no nice way for that. And it sounds terrible because we're FreudenFreude and we're supposed to not judge people, but let's be honest, how other way can you call a person that struggles with control, self-control? And so my question to people today is, are these people bullies or are they foe? What do you think is that drives these people to do or behave in this way?
Well, who knows? Maybe not even any of those. I mean, they might just have a really hard time coping. They might come from a different culture. What they think they're saying is not what we hear they're saying, right? But of course, degrees in that, right? There's degrees in cultural ineptitude, and then
we can only blame it so much.
Right, and just taking, there's a line, people, yeah, but that line isn't in the same spot for everybody. So yeah, let's just say we appreciate the line and we give it some good buffer area there, right? And the people we're talking about are people that crossed way into the no-go territory, because there is, I think, stuff that's acceptable in a professional environment, and then there isn't, right? And I think that all of us too, as we are exposed to that, we bring our own triggers and our own value systems into that situation as well. Okay. You can not always assume that if somebody says something that to you appears really crazy, that it's necessarily that other person being crazy, or you in your own self just calling it crazy because maybe some buttons got pushed that are just yours. Okay. Exactly. So I think that maybe as we observe things like that, one of the first things to do a priori, right, is to not
say that again. What word did you say? What French word did you say?
No, Latin, a priori. It's like, you know,
oh, yes.
Like in the beginning, let's keep an open enough mind that, you know, that what you have seen and the reaction that you had, you know, might just be miscommunication, that it wasn't meant that way and that you perceived it maybe in a way that it wasn't meant, and so on. So first step for me always is give the benefit of the doubt. We don't know what's going on really, okay? And who knows, you might have a bad day. You know, bitch boss might have a bad day today, worse than others. And, you know, then we all know how hard a day can be and how we can overreact in situations when our willpower capacity, our decision-making capacity is just depleted for that day. There are days like that, okay? Is it an excuse? No, but it is just maybe a step in the understanding, the mutual understanding of a situation. So my first reaction typically is like, whoa, isn't that interesting? Without judging directly so much. And if I'm offended, I'm asking, I you know, just being kind of in this semi-meta position, I say, oh, check it out. I was offended and I was really offended. So what's really happening here? And sometimes we notice that even having this split second of self-observation and kind of a little bit distant observation of what's happening here gives us enough time not to have these knee-jerk reactions. Because I think the worst thing you can do, that's my personal experience, the worst thing you can do is if somebody goes off the rails, that you throw fuel on the fire. Sorry about mixing metaphors here, people. But you know, that you just give it energy, that you feed that beast, okay? It's better just to like keep a step back and you know, sorry to put it that way, Sandra, but be that voice of reason.
You know, I analyzed, it's, you know, I've had enough years to analyze this person. I didn't have back then the tools, the ability, the emotional intelligence, nothing, or values or beliefs. I had nothing. I would just believe. I would believe that people were naturally good. I would believe that people were always with good intentions and that their feedback was intended for me to grow. But when you encounter this kind of person in a workplace, the truth is the questions that I ask, whether it's a bully or it's a faux person, a personality, it's neither one, like you said, Claudia. This people, there's a book that is called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? And it's by Dr. Julie Smith. And I'll put it out there because I think she's not paying me for this. But, you know, I think it's very much worth it because she speaks many logical truths, such as this particular topic where people that gossip, that hurt, that offend, that here, I wrote it down because I wanted to make sure that I delivered the message the right way, because it's not about judging people. It's about understanding them, but then at the same time for you not to fall into that, right? Because when you watch videos on YouTube, you normally watch people interacting constantly, going back and forth. And you, like me as a coach, I think, why bother? Just let it go. And so what I say is that a person with unstable emotions is someone that has learned to gossip, criticize, point out uncertainty, which are things that freak them out, things that make them feel unsafe, and reject others as a way to survive and belong. Okay. And so when this hit me, when this psychologist was saying this, it, you know, I didn't quote her exactly because I don't remember, but it made sense. Some people only know what they know. And we are, you know, the expression monkey see, monkey do exists for a reason. And that is because children mimic and copy what their parents do and how they behave and how they react and how they solve problems, how they manage situations, how they come to conclusions, everything, right? Which at the end of the day is called, you know, a way to create empathy and be able to manage life. These people only have sympathy because they probably experience at some point, and it doesn't necessarily is it, but it could well be that some of them have experienced childhood trauma in any way. Now, I'm not talking about abuse or anything like that. They probably experienced neglect. Their needs were not being met. And they were brought up to question every single decision they made. So once they grow up and they hold positions of, you know, being a general manager, a leader, or some kind of position that gives them a little bit of a oomph, you know, in a workplace, they immediately resort into hurting others because that's all they know how to do. And so when I think about this leader, she was we were working in a company from the Netherlands, and I have no problem in calling her out, but I'm not going to do it because it's not professional. But she was from the Czech Republic. And that itself told me a lot. Like we said, there's so much that you can blame culture, right? But being from the Czech Republic kind of brought me a little bit more of awareness of where she was coming from. She was coming from a communist country that up to 1980 something, they became independent and they left communism for a democracy. So when you are brought up into a certain system where there's what's it called, oppression, right? There's only my way or the highway. They kind of are brought up in a way that they themselves cannot expand their wings. So why would somebody else be allowed to expand their wings?
Yeah, definitely. It has an impact on the leadership style that you adopt later on, the way that you in general relate to people and so on. And then, you know, of course, then you know, a person like that, and again, we're generalizing here, and you know, in do we like point fingers at any person of any ethnicity or anything? This is one specific person in one specific case. But you know, if that was kind of the modus operandi of this particular person, and then on top of it, she goes into a company from the Netherlands where people are usually very direct, very outspoken, you know, to what their culture is, you know, that can even feed into that. That can even feed
exactly.
So yes. Definitely that can do it. I think that another word that you mentioned earlier is the gossipers. Yes, thrive on gossip, and if there's none to be had, sometimes they create some, right? Because gossip is already validated if it exists in one person's mind that is shared once. And you know, I think that that's pretty bad. Other people that can come across as kind of crazy are like the absolute control freaks, right? That just go on everybody's case because everything has to be just so. And the just so mindful is, mind you, is by their definition of just so, right?
Yes.
You know, right in line with those guys, like the micromanagers. I think that they too can be a really tough nut to crack on an everyday basis, because you know they just they're like the corporate equivalent of a helicopter mom. Yeah. And so I think what a lot of these have in common is I think some, at least for some of them, this urge to like create drama.
Yes.
Whether they're out to create drama or whether it's created just by these kind of actions, but they're doing it not because they want to avoid drama, people. Okay, they are doing thrive on drama. And if there's this fire burning over there, this drama going around today, maybe people are not taking a closer look at me. Like protection, right? Might be a way of seeking attention.
Correct.
It might be a way to you know, deal with their own negativity biases and their own fears, right? I mean, there's all like these things, and they can be very complex. Some can be intentional and some absolutely not. I think that there's some crazy co-workers out there that are in no way, shape, or form aware that they are crazy co-workers.
Yes, no, because nobody ever tells them that. And I always wondered, how is it possible that you can go through corporate life without somebody telling you from HR, hey, no, it's a no. But that's where we come to the point where we say this is where companies reward this kind of behavior.
Yeah, but why would we, oh, somebody is coming. Why would we, hi John, feel free to turn your camera on, feel free to join in, otherwise take your time and just
enjoy.
Oh my God, people, this was live. Okay, so that kind of puts a damper on things. I'm going to report him to Zoom later. So sorry.
Yes.
I did not know which button to push that quick. So
yeah, I had to figure it out.
Oh, crazy people. So now let's take this.
That's a
right? Like, what does this person get out of this, really? Right? And I'm going to figure out how to delete
dopamine.
this.
Dopamine.
Right? But it's like, yeah.
LinkedIn, so, this is on LinkedIn. How could you do that? Or YouTube?
Yeah. So let's do this and say that attention seeking, yeah, showing off that you're like a pubertarian teenager, you know, with nothing in your head. And let's not feed him the acknowledgement of our, what you call it, of our attention. Let's just
correct. So let me tell you why I've been, this is not like, let's say people, this is not a rant. Okay, this is the reason why we are experiencing right now a lot of people. That's why you have right now, you know, sadly, the people that are called Karens. I find it very disturbing that just because you disagree with somebody's opinions or values, you are called a Karen or you are called a Kent. These people are usually people that we call crazy. The problem is, let me see. The problem is that they are people that can explode at any moment because they were not regulated into controlling their emotions. They were left to their own devices to manage this kind of behavior and exposing themselves in such a way that it's questionable. It's just because, remember, I told you their needs were not met. And when their needs are not met, they're okay with any type of attention, even if it's negative.
Even if it's negative, yeah.
I'm sorry. Oh, well, okay.
Even if it's negative, because the best thing would be positive attention, but indifference for people like that is intolerable. Silence is intolerable. Yeah. And so that's a very, very good point. And I think that all these things we have kind of said, yes, let's try to understand where this is coming from. I really think that is a very strong thing to do and do first. But on the other hand, we are in a professional setting. And so what do we tolerate and what don't we? There's certain things that cannot be tolerated in a professional environment. There is, bullying, harassment, keeping information to themselves and going on power trips that way. Being the naysayer and being negative. Being a naysayer, I mean, questioning what is being done and pulling attention to, maybe suboptimal standards and processes in a team is one thing, but always, being negative is not.
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing is that there's stuff that people nowadays, especially post-COVID, if you come to think of it, bring to work. It's after COVID, where people were able to stay home for a little while, right? And they were reassess what it means to be at work, and the lines between work and not work have become more blurred. So now we have a whole contingent of people that do not just show up in their mostly professional persona, but they bring all the drama with them to work. Yeah. The breakup or the spat with the loved one.
Or
something, right? Just that they had, all the stuff, like, they show up to work and they're already in the state, and they're not able to then distinguish between what's acceptable to show and discuss at work and not. I think that
right. Yes.
Is a thing. Another thing has nothing to do with that, but let me say it while it's in my head, because I've still been quite sick this week, so my head's all over. But it is this it's essentially this blame game.
Okay.
And it's like, as soon as something doesn't necessarily go well in the team, there's always that want to blame somebody.
Right. Yes. Somebody's head has to roll. Yes, definitely.
Somebody's head has to roll. Somehow they have to make themselves feel better and save face and all these kind of things. And that becomes even worse when they make the feedback or the discussion or the judgment about the person and not about the behavior or the outcome. You are an imbecile, not in this project, in this project, in this particular context, in this particular meeting, you did something that was maybe not optimal. Okay.
Right.
How it's phrased. It's always these like children, like teenagers do this often. It's like, you are whatever. And it's just when some young people say, I am bad at math and I'm going to be bad at math forever, even though they just might have had one bad mark on one particular test. So make it about the identity or the fundamental capabilities or values of a person, rather than an assessment or a discussion about behavior or outcome in a specific context. And that hurts. That hurts. If you have somebody who is painfully in your face with constantly these personal attacks and these generalized hurtful comments and things like that, it's going to be taking a toll, most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine what it is to be a child for this person? What I'm trying to say is that this is generational. And, when you think about generational trauma, because this becomes not only a problem, but generational trauma, which means that their children and their children's children will always be stuck in one place. And you know what, where usually it is? In the past. Because one of the things that you mentioned initially was that they're constantly filled with triggers, right? And those triggers are because they're living in the past. So, they don't have a coherent notion that they have control of their actions, that these are not in control of them, but the other way around. And I feel that this kind of people are mostly what is right now invading, because it feels like a virus invading society now. People like these people, crazy people, they're really not crazy. So maybe if you can help me find, while we're talking, a word, because it's unfair to call them crazy. I think it was just a catchy phrase, but I think that these people that are very susceptible to joining a cult, and I mean it in every other way. And I mean a cult, it could be a movement. They can be brainwashed. They could believe anything you tell them because they are so eager to belong to the same group of people that think and believe what they believe, because everybody else doesn't understand them. And they think that by imposing themselves onto others is going to be a way of getting over their traumas. But what they're doing is that they're just feeding the trauma. They're just being who they were in the past. So I think people have already an idea of what we're trying to say. And now my question is how to resolve this.
Yeah, so, first of all, disclaimer here, not everybody that acts out at work is ready to join a cult. That's not what we
No, we're talking about the people that are easily, that lose perspective of things, right?
Extreme cases. And so, well, yeah, what do we do about it? I think we already touched on it when we said, let's try to understand. And I think the next one would be, even if it was meant personally by this manipulative, gossipy, negative, drama-filled person that's your coworker, even if it was meant, don't take it personally.
Exactly.
Not Velcro, okay? Let's not feed that fire. Let's not feed that beast. Let's just, okay, his problem, because any statement of behavior by that person is theirs. and you don't need to accept it. You don't need to accept every gifted horse, as Buddha already.
Exactly. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, you know, you can just leave it in its place, and you know, just on occasion walk away. You know, or don't engage. Just say, you know, guess what? You're entitled to your opinion, as am I.
Make some space. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, in any case, but no matter how in the end you do react, I think that it's a matter of inside yourself, not taking it personally. Don't let values be diminished. Don't let your sense of serenity be diminished, right? And just let it go, right? There's no need in getting frustrated, stressed, upset, and carrying it with you for the rest of your day. It's one person's opinion and so on. Granted, if it's the boss from hell and unfair stuff happens, and you know, they have the power to enforce whatever their ludicrous decisions are and things like that, it's painful, and it's going to be painful. But you know, some things you can change and others you can't.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that I was thinking about is that the best way to resolve the situation, because most of the times it's like, okay, but what can I do? That's exactly the kind of boss that I have, or the kind of leader, or the kind of coworker that I have. Well, when it's a coworker, it's one person. Hopefully it's only one person. So here's the thing. You're not their therapist. You're not their coach, and you're not their mother. You're not there to guide other people to be better, but it is important for you to bring this to the attention of your leader in order for this person to become better. Hopefully there's programs that this person can take. You know, there's coaching hopefully available for them. And there is psychologists, there's medical treatment that this person can get, because the truth is we don't know what this person is going through, right? Sometimes their behavior tells you, their language tells you what they're going through. We sometimes get so caught up with living our lives that we don't listen, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Definitely escalating, you know, has its place. Many companies have an HR procedure for that and things like that. On the other hand, we need to acknowledge that if the person who is exhibiting this, you know, perceived crazy behavior is a boss, then, you know, that's the one who's gonna grade your performance and, you know, assign you projects and whatever. So
but then it's time to leave.
I mean, you know, there will be times when it will be, you know, very uncomfortable or risky to, you know, escalate a situation like that. So use your best judgment. But yes, absolutely, Sandra, you're right. We're not there to fix these people, right? Because we can't. We have only power over our own reactions, our own responses, behavior, and thought processes, right? Where do we put our energy? You know, of course, if it crosses certain lines, if it really goes into cliquey bullying and you know, even stuff that's really starting to become psychologically or physically dangerous for that matter, you know, I think that sometimes we just have to take a stronger stance, and maybe if not alone, maybe as a sub team, or maybe together with your boss, you can bring, you know, bring something to somebody's attention. You have to use your good judgment. So if you are a leader of a team where there are crazy co-workers in there, what would be some things that you would put in place, Sandra?
So one of the things that I was reading today was that it's very important that you set aside these kind of people. I think in this case, one of the things that I would do,
I set aside.
set aside is like, be more aware that you have these kind of employees, and maybe, just maybe, sometimes their behavior is because they haven't been told specifically what is expected of them, right? Because you also have to know whether this is a aggressive behavior towards you as a human being, or is it just you criticizing other people's work, right? That is part of the importance of paying attention. Like, sometimes we tell you don't pay attention, but it's very important that you listen to people, read between the lines, right? And I think when I try to think about this person, this leader that was suffering some kind of breakdown, I think, what I would suggest as a leader of this leader is to set them to the side and pay closer attention to their needs, because you cannot lead a company in that way. There's no change. There's no psychological safety. Motivation is diminished. Employees lose interest. You lose more by holding on to one person than to just simply sometimes let it go.
Sometimes you might need to let them go. Absolutely, right? I mean, it might just also not be the right fit, for those kind of things. I mean, definitely some people just don't mesh, and it can have such a negative impact on team dynamic and overall company culture. We all have heard even of a very crazy, sorry for use of this word again, open parenthesis, this has in no way or shape or form anything to do with mental health.
Exactly.
We are coaches. We said at the beginning, we are not mental health specialists. Okay. People out there that do have mental health issues, and I hope that they are finding the help that they need. We are not here to give people a diagnosis or to treat them or anything like that. So let's just say we stay with the more thing of the co-worker with crazy behavior and the
reactions, behaviors, exactly, just don't go with, yes, correct.
Cross a certain line, let's say, close
exactly.
But we have all heard cases of C-suite, like very powerful people in companies that just like the effects of their behavior spread throughout the culture and become like this demoralizing thing for everybody, hundreds, thousands, right? And so sometimes even as a company, even if it's one of the original founders, even if it is something like that, they need to consider some form of corrective action, because can the company really
succeed
on this impact, right? And is in where employee wellness, company culture is kind of important. Do we still accept behavior like that? But I think that if we stay maybe on a smaller team scale and things like that, I think that it can be helpful to, first of all, talk about it, bring it in the open. Work with the team to establish ground rules agreement. This is how we communicate here, and this is what's acceptable, and this is what's not acceptable, and those can live at a team level outside of just the company-wide ones. They can be more refined. They should not go against company values, right? And
correct.
They should be consistent with that, but they can be nevertheless for these people in this team, okay? And everybody should agree to them. Everybody should be involved in setting these up. They're a fundamental part also of psychological safety. So definitely communication guidelines, boundaries, I think. to address boundaries explicitly, not just to assume that everybody knows what healthy boundaries are in a team, but to be able to talk about boundaries so that you can say openly to somebody, you crossed a boundary, and it's that particular boundary that we talked about, or that we have in our agreement. And I think that boundaries are just go line in line with expectations. Again, what's expected here in terms of behavior, and what's acceptable and what isn't. So I think that would be a very important first step that I would do as a leader. On the other hand, I think keeping your eye on the pulse of the team, like the stress levels overall, how they're able to deal with the workload and external or internal stressors. Because yes, some people bring drama from outside into the company, but let's take it, work is oftentimes drama enough to drive people off the wall. And so I think that stress, as we know, brings out the worst in people. So maybe during peacetime, I had a team coaching client, and they always said, oh yeah, this is in peacetime and this is in wartime, because really there's moments where you go to work and you think you're like entering the trenches, right? Because stuff is so stressful. And so even if people during peacetime, like when things are kind of going semi-smoothly and so on, they are able to cope. When stress levels escalate, and let's say stress levels at work, but maybe also even fueled a little bit by external stresses that we do nothing about.
Right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So if all that causes the cup to overflow in terms of stress, that's then when these normally quite peaceful and professional people can absolutely go crazy, because they have lost this, their brain has switched into this absolute stress mode, and you can't control it anymore. And very often people become the opposite of who they normally are, actually. And so if stress levels were such and are recognized as such that it causes this crazy behavior, and then often it's not just one person, everybody is kind of on edge, and then one spark and the whole thing just blows up, right? And those kind of situations, let's also become aware that stress is a factor in those. And maybe what's necessary is stress management techniques and stress reduction and burnout prevention, not necessarily disciplinary action immediately.
No, coaching and training is ideally, yes, the first step.
It's like, all these things can be so amplified in times of extreme stress. And nowadays, in companies, some people are under extreme stress constantly.
Yes.
And the barrel overflows, right? And I know today I'm terrible at mixing my metaphors, but just, deal with it.
I'm going to admit that, we were, before that incident, we were very engaged. We were very ready. And I feel that, trying to get over that situation for me has been hard to engage again, right? So I'm blaming it on the situation more than our ability to discuss the topic, because I think everybody has had a crazy coworker. Everybody has had a person that one of the biggest examples that I can tell you is that I remember that they would talk terrible things about one particular person. This girl just lived her own life. She was who she wanted to be. She owned her body. She was just her own persona. And for some reason, these people found themselves constantly talking about her. And one day I gave in, like, they would always ask me, and I was always like, information would just pass by. And I was like, no, did you notice this, Sandra? No. And did you hear this? No. I was never interested in other people's affairs, which is one important thing, because it sounds terrible, but it kind of worked. But then at the same time, I do regret it. I heard somebody once say that I go to the office to work, not to socialize. And I understand it now, but I regret it because I probably missed the opportunity to create bigger bonds. Bonds, different than just gossip, different than just, talking about somebody else. And the one time that I gave in, it was so juicy that they were so excited about what I said. But guess what? I made it up. That was the whole intention, was just to fit in, because I was tired of them constantly just pushing me to the side, because I had nothing of value to add to their gossip, which is one of the biggest problems that we confront when we have a person, especially leadership, that is just not all there. Okay, that's really the word that I'm looking for, not being all there. And so in order to fit in, you tend to be part of it. But the truth is, you learn to survive, because some people don't have the option. That's another thing that we don't talk about, Claudia. Some people just don't have the option. And it's one of the best paying jobs. So people have to choose whether it's about money or it's about psychological safety. And I love that we talk about psychological safety. I love that we talk about motivational drive. I love that we talk about mindset and growth and all this kind of stuff. But the truth is that a lot of companies are just using this as props to sound good and look good. But what happens really behind the scenes is not exactly what we're expecting it to happen. Because sometimes they bring in people like you and I to train them. And then the problem happens, like, without knowing that there's a study out there that says that after 3 months, after putting in place a program, if there is no follow-up or a little bit of nudging, like, hey, let's, where are you? What are you doing? How are you working on your goals? What are you setting? And all this kind of stuff, people fail.
Yeah, that's also
one of a company fails. That's sad.
That's really why training and so on really doesn't work.
Yes,
that's why
no follow-up.
Like team coaching and things like that, which is exactly this kind of longer term kind of engagement that involves all the stakeholders and system internal stakeholders in this process, and let's help to figure it out and learn. Is a trigger here, because as you kind of get exposed to these crazy coworkers, learn from it. You might not be able to change anything. You might need to just deal with them and accept that they are what they are, and you don't have the clout or the capability, or you decide not to do something.
Interact, yeah.
Right? So learn from it and figure out, like, look at it a little bit from this, like, what's really happening here? What can I learn from it? How can I maybe next time engage differently, and so on? Because ultimately we can only be responsible for our own learning and our own growth and self-reflection.
Right.
So let's not forget about that part. That might be the only, hopefully not, but that might be the only silver lining in this whole tricky situation that you might be exposed to with this crazy coworker, is that you learn more about behavior, impact of behavior, communication styles.
Right.
Right. And, sometimes it takes these crazy people that take behavior to the extreme, make us recognize more sneaky attacks, right? If you really can observe like the really crazy, extreme of a behavior, then hopefully that will also help you to get a certain sensitivity and recognition for these same behaviors, but when they're kept smaller and are more like subtle and maybe even manipulative and things like that. So I think that some self-reflection can can help you recognizing those traits in other people, and then already from the forefront make some decisions about how you would engage with that. But as a leader in particular, I think it's a very challenging thing. As a team coach, I can only say you have to just find a place to talk about it and bring it in the open, because otherwise it's not going to get checked. And if these things run unchecked, it's only going to get worse.
One of the things that I've learned is that it helps you in some way grow a spine, because everywhere you go, there's always going to be somebody that behaves in such a way that is just not there. And if there's one person, then honey, I'm going to tell you, you know what? Just deal with it and ignore the person. One of the things that I learned, and this is applicable, by the way, to neighbors, to everybody else. And why do I say this? Because I had a crazy neighbor. I really wanted to help her. You see, the intentions of humanity is to always try to help others, right? And you give them the benefit of the doubt. You're always kind of saying, well, maybe I said something wrong, because the person behaved it or gave you a trigger behavior response, right? And you're wondering, where did this come from? But then also, let's remember one thing, that not only do these people are more gullible, but they tend to be more exposed to, how do I say it in a nice way, to having some kind of like smoking, like drinking, that those kind of things, just to ease their own pain, right? And so when you have people like this that from outside the office, that that there are neighbors, that there are people that you speak with and all this kind of stuff, I personally, as a coach, I try to be a friend coach, and now I realize that you can't mix one with the other. No. Because it was affecting my little dynamic here in the family. And think about it. If it affects a dynamic in a house, imagine how it affects a dynamic as a group, as a team, as a corporation, like you were saying, Claudia, from C-suites and all this kind of stuff. And I've always wondered, how can companies hold on to this person? Really incompetent people are the ones that sometimes are in higher positions.
They might be very competent. See, one has nothing to do
always about talking.
Right? Because some of these people are in their positions because they can create really impactful innovations and change. They can bring in investors and all that stuff, but they're terrible communicators and they just disrupt the company culture. So, and I think that it's no easy situation, and like so many things, it really depends on the options open to a team or a company on how to address these things, because every situation is going to be different. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's why you can't make these overarching things, and it doesn't help to bring in somebody to teach a course on conflict resolution. Right? Yeah. It just doesn't help, because these things are kind of these average, based on average kind of programs, and that might be good in 50 cases, but not yours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, sometimes it takes the effort and the investment and to engage, for instance, with a very particular organizational mediator, or with team coaches, organizational psychologists maybe, and things like that, to help, put these things in line. Because, as team coaches, we see this all the time. Okay, this like, it's all the time. And frankly, I do not have in mind a one size fits all way of addressing these issues. I do not even pretend to. You go in, you really assess fundamentally what's happening here. You get the inputs from all the various stakeholders. You try to get a systemic view of who's affected, who's not, and so on. And then together with the team, or the company for that matter, you try to resolve the issue. And there's in no way can, in my opinion, at least in my philosophy and my experience, one external person, even with the external view, cannot come in and be the one to put the band-aids on, right? It's like, this has to heal from the inside out. But what's very helpful more often than not is to have this external coach or a team of co-coaches to come in and guide this process, and make and explorations possible in the first place, because it's uncomfortable. Because there's elephants in the room that, unless somebody stands beside you and says, come on, now look at the elephant, here's a flashlight, you're not going to do it. It's too painful, right? And
it is. Yep.
I think that what things like coaching on an individual level and team coaching on a more team and corporate level can bring to the table is just this not bowing out, and just doing it despite the discomfort. Right? Because we're all people, right? And no how high the hierarchy in a company we are, and how much power we can yield, we're just people, and we're always going to be like not eager to engage in painful activities. And these things really be painful, especially if done in a collective, because those are going to flare and it's not going to be comfortable. Yeah.
The purpose of this today, that what we're talking about, is not to create a weaker work environment, because we understand that there is a younger generation that is coming in. But also what is important to keep in mind is that, we still have responsibilities. There's still work to be done, and we still need to fulfill those needs. And what's important about this conversation, what I wish people would take away from this conversation, is that sometimes what we don't keep in mind is that just maybe the communication is not happening both ways. And it could very well be a misunderstanding that is happening. I think we've all experienced what misunderstanding is, what would have been or should have been if we would have communicated better, if we would have set expectations, clear expectations, versus always believing that people should know what to do, or people are responsible of their self-development. Imagine if companies would offer self-development more. That would be incredible. I'm pretty sure people would have the kind of people that they're looking for if they would help their own employees manage this.
Yeah, but self-development very often for companies would come in the form of training. And
yes,
right. So, let me just claim this, and then we're going to put a hard stop to it.
Yes, sounds good.
because that's definitely, I mean, that is in its very essence self-development, self-reflection, with a positive intent, in a positive, a future-oriented, strength-based, solution-oriented kind of take. That is all the things that you then allow the coach to tailor to this particular person. And sometimes even a few hours can make a huge difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wait until it needs to be done remedially. Okay, coaching should not be a punishment. And so, I think if more people, especially those in leadership positions, would be offered this opportunity, it would make a difference. I stand by what I.
Lovely. Yes, lovely words. I agree with you.
Thank you all so very much. This was great, with a little twist thrown in the middle there. I'm going to try to edit this somehow. I hope I can figure it out. Otherwise, I'm going to delete it off the live list and
Yes.
the recording, which I have done. So for those who did watch live, we apologize, and we did learn something from this.
Yes.
And so thank you so much. We will see you again next week. And
Yes.
doing resilience again next week, or intercultural intelligence? Which one is it?
We are yet to see. Let's see. That's a good question.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was our pleasure. And if you like what you see, give it some love, comment, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, stuff like that. That would be most helpful. And do tell your friends.
Thank you very much, everybody. Good night, Claudia. Good night, everybody.